All righty. I think we can go ahead and get started. We'll get started with some quick intros, and then we can dive into why we're here. So my name's Molly Wheaton. I'm a co-founder at Earn Better. We're a company that uses AI to help people in the job search. All of our services are completely free. So if you are on the job search and you're looking for free support, feel free to check us out. Before Earn Better, I spent a little over 10 years at various tech companies across a bunch of different functions, recruiting, operations, client management, etc. I'm based in Austin. Would love to know where y'all are tuning in from. So comment with your location. And Joy, you want to do a quick intro?
Sure. So my name is Joie Karcher, and I am currently a program manager over at NetApp. Prior to that, I founded an organization called Your Network Now, which was a job seeker program for folks in talent acquisition, and I wrapped that up over the summer and accepted this role on a contract basis with NetApp, which I'm super excited about. Prior to that, I worked for organizations, large and small, most notably, I think name dropping here, Microsoft and Dell, and have been in the talent acquisition space. And I'm like, wait for it, 29 years. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I don't feel that old. So, but a long time. And I was just telling Molly, I've had the privilege of having a variety of different roles. And so I feel very grateful for that. It's definitely a luxury position to be in. So and Molly, thanks for asking me to do this today. Super excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. If you guys don't follow Joy on LinkedIn already, she's the best. And yeah, so the reason we're here, Joy and I were chatting about doing an event together that could help job seekers, and identified a few hot topics that, we get asked about. And so we'll start with Joy answering some of those, providing her opinion, myself as well. And then we'll also get to some Q&A from the audience. So please comment and ask questions throughout the event. One caveat, I'm going to try to stay present in the conversation with Joy. So I might not be able to see your questions in real time, but we'll take breaks to look at questions. And if not, we'll get to them at the end. Definitely want to hear from you, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. If we don't get to your question, feel free to follow up with us one-on-one, and we'll try to get those addressed. All right, so we'll get started. The first topic, so ageism and compensation, which
we're going right in.
I know we're just going to rip the Band-Aid off.
Love it.
I thought about saving it for the end, but I get so many questions about this, and I think it's something that a lot of people want to hear about. I know it's sort of two-pronged, and so I don't know if you want to tackle it together or separately, but we definitely hear a lot from job seekers about how to combat ageism in the job search. And then we also hear a lot of from people who are asking, like, should I be considering jobs that pay less, even though, my skill set is aligned to this? So don't know where you kind of want to start here, but let's, would love to hear kind of your thoughts on kicking it off.
Yeah. So I think what I'll do, what I will do is give my 30,000 bird's eye view opinion on this. And I just want to preface everything. Oh my God, David, hi. I want to give my opinion. I want to share with everybody before I start talking here. Everything I'm about ready to convey is based around my experience, my knowledge. It doesn't mean it's the law, obviously. Like, I'm not a legal eagle. This is, hey, this is what I've experienced as a job seeker myself, or what I've heard from other people that are in the job seeking seat. So just please know that, like, what I say is not the end all be all. So with that said, I am really irritated. Like, we'll just go right in. I'm really irritated with the fact that companies are posting jobs right now for 2+ years of experience, but are hiring individuals with 20+ years of experience at an extremely low rate. So they're getting the benefit of the supply that's available in the market. So A, I'm irritated, right? But then B, on the flip side, it's okay. So if I'm a job seeker, right? So I will just tell y'all, I'm 50 years old. I just turned 50 this summer. I've got 29 years of experience in the industry. And, you know, if I were in a position, and I'm not, okay, so I just want to share that as well. I'm not in this position, but if I were in this position where I have to pay my bills, what do I do? Right? What I have heard from other job seekers is, and what I've shared with job seekers is, this is a moment in time. This does not mean that this is a forever.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do take a job, because everything is personal in a job search when it comes to the money aspect. I don't pay your bills. I don't live your lifestyle. So if you can take a job that pays less to pay your bills, you know, nobody can judge that, right? Because you're self-supporting through your own contributions. That's great. But here's where the rubber meets the road, right? So, okay, so if you have to do it, you have to do it. I'm irritated with businesses that are taking advantage of what the talent pool has to offer right now. And everybody's saying, "Oh, it'll turn around. It'll turn around." Well, okay, it will. But in the interim, what do you do? Like, how do you actually
Mm-hmm.
combat that? And at the end of the day, it really boils down to, are you as a job seeker, and then here's on the job seeker side, the ownership that we have is, are you mass applying? Are you applying out of fear because I need to apply? Or are you being really strategic? And sometimes that word makes me barf a little bit, but like, are you being really strategic about your job search and saying, okay, I really need a job that is in this space that pays this amount of money, blah, 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 right? Now the pay aspect and the ageism thing, right? Right now, those two things do not balance out equally. I think there are some companies that are doing well in that area. They are taking advantage of the talent pool, but they're paying for it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But for the most part, like these large bodies of tech companies right now, we're unfortunately at the mercy of what's available in the market right now. And what's available in the market right now are not jobs that are requiring 20 plus years or even 15 plus years of experience, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just, and it'd be interesting to hear, like, so those are my top of mind thoughts, like just rigorous honesty. But the other thing that I would love to know from your perspective, Molly, is what are the questions you get on the Earn Better platform from job seekers about this topic? I'd be curious to know about that.
Certainly. And thank you for providing honest thoughts, because I know sometimes it's a topic that people might want to skirt around or not address head on. So appreciate that. I would say the two that we get the most around ageism are, what do I need to, like, what tactical changes should I make to my resume so that I can even get an interview? Should I list all 30 years of my experience, or should I cut that down? So that's the first one. And then the second one is people making it to the interview stage and then feeling like once they hop on the Zoom or the Google Meet, or if it's in person, maybe being judged by their age. And they know that they can do the job, they're qualified, but they feel like maybe that's what's getting them knocked out. So those are kind of the two most frequent questions we get.
Yeah. So, David, I would say no. Yeah, I think the answer is no as well. Like, I think, well, first and foremost, right? Like, why is a company? Well, okay, so company basically would interview you because you've shortened down your resume to say, oh, I don't have all these oodles of years of experience. I have exactly what you're looking for. And then they get on the call and they're like, whoa, like you have, 30 years of experience. And we're only looking for 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
So listen, I wish I had an answer to that. I think that I am of the mind of like a litmus test sometimes with that kind of stuff, right? Where it's, and I kind of learned this with the Earn Better platform, which is test out different resumes that work. And then once you're getting responses for a specific, resume type, then and it's like, okay, that's the resume that works. Now, my little moral gut, my moral compass gut tells me rigorous honesty is always the best policy, because now you're bait and switching the employer, right? So you're kind of in a position where you're saying, hey, oh, I only have 5 years experience. And then they interview you and they're like, wait a second. Like, do you have 5 years experience or do you have 30, right? I believe in rigorous honesty in that respect. And it's one of those situations too, where every company is going to have a different philosophy on that too, right? So I think the better we can be, and I'm not trying to skirt the question here, but I think the better we can be as job seekers, and what I mean by this is in providing feedback to the larger masses, we have everything at our fingertips. So if you're a candidate that interviewed for a job where the company said, I'm only looking for 5 years of experience, and you condensed your resume down and they passed on you once they found out you have more experience, share that. Why wouldn't we share that? Like, information is power, right? And I think, we have Handshake, we have Glassdoor, there's so many platforms, LinkedIn, right? For sobbing out loud. We have so many platforms available to us. Share the knowledge, because frankly, if I'm 50, I've got 29 years of experience. And if I know, I'm just going to pull David out of the hat because I see his name up here. David interviewed at a company. He got passed on because he has too much experience for the job. And David posts that for me. I'm like, you know what? Peace out. I'm not going to waste my application on them. Right. And that may be the wrong answer, guys. But like, for me, it's a personal choice on where I'm going to apply. Right. But I think information is power. I think we need to share more about those interview experiences. And it's less about like, look what they did to me. And it's more about, hey, like, be of service to the bigger community at large here and share your experience. So that's number one. Number two is that, I don't shorten down my resume. I think what I've done is I've just condensed down, like at the bottom of my resume, right? I just kind of put in parenthetical from here to here, like X years of experience, running agencies, blah, blah, blah. Right.
Yeah.
My education, if I've graduated from somewhere, I never put my graduation date, just FYI. That's something I learned a long time ago. I think that might be an old school mentality, Molly, but I don't put my graduation date on there. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I know a lot of people who do that. So I don't think that's old school. I think that's pretty common.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, and keep in mind too, people read resumes when they're looking at resumes, just in human nature. And here in the United States, we read resumes top down, left to right. So if you're utilizing your entire, years of experience and all your like 30 years, somebody's not going to take, I will tell you right now, I don't think 100% of the recruiters out there are going to take the time to read the whole resume. They're going to look at what's at the top, and do you have the keywords that I'm looking for in my job description? And then they're going to move you forward. Right.
Yeah.
The other thing, sorry, can I say one more thing while it's top of mind? The other thing I was going to say too is, if you do get the interview from an ageism perspective, this is what makes me cringe more than anything, is I hear people say this: I know I'm overqualified for the job, but stop saying that. Stop saying that. Listen, if they are screening you for the job, there is something on your resume that they're interested in. So listen, actively listen. You're already giving them a reason to knock you out. So just say, like, don't even say that. I know I'm overqualified, but, or I know I haven't done that in a while. Or I know you're looking for an individual contributor and I've been a manager. It's okay. I'm willing to take a pay cut. Oh my God, don't say any of that. Just actively listen, stay curious a little bit longer during the interview, let the other person do the vetting and answer their questions appropriately. Don't ever knock yourself out before you actually hear what they need. So, because I've heard that happen a lot, by the way. I've heard that time and time again. So, okay, sorry, I totally stepped on you. Go ahead.
No, don't even worry about it. I think those were all really good perspectives. And I also saw David made a comment about, keeping resume to last 10 to 15 years. I think this dovetails well into your point. Most recruiters are just going to be looking at the most recent and relevant experience. So, whether or not you want to trim stuff that's more dated than that. Or as Joy was saying, like maybe you just have a bullet at the end addressing what you had done before that. But yeah, for the most part, they're going to spend the majority of their time reviewing your most recent or one or two roles, depending on what the job is and what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
I had one question that I thought would be interesting to take here, and then we probably do need to move on to our next topic just because we're already halfway through. But Jim Feltzer had a question. Will taking that survivor job to pay the bills have impact to your future prospects because you've most recently been doing a lesser role? It's a really good question.
I think it's a great question. I think and I will say this, the gift of the economy that we're in, you're not the only person. So like you're not an anomaly, right? Like if the market was crazy right now, good and all that stuff, and you took a job that was, lesser in scope, lesser in pay, et cetera. Yeah, I mean, somebody might be a little bit more curious about it. But you're not the only person that would be doing that. To me, it's a moment in time. It's a pit stop. It's, hey, I'm doing this to keep my skills relevant in the market. And also, ensure that I keep the train moving. But the other thing too is, and again, keeping it real, shame on those companies and shame on the recruiters. I'm a recruiter, so I will call myself out on this, but shame on the recruiters and the companies that would give two rats patooties that you did that. Why does that matter? Unless you're going for like a CEO job, right? And it's kind of like, well, you took an individual contributor job for the last 5 years and now you want to reapply for a CEO, right? I think that's apples and oranges, right? But like if it's within the sphere of where you're looking for and it's a moment in time, who cares what you did other than are you keeping your skills fresh and relevant? And fresh and relevant doesn't even necessarily mean that you're in the same industry. Like I saw people taking restaurant jobs and retail jobs and all this other stuff to pay the bills while they're still looking for something back in corporate America. And, the gift that they got there was their customer service improved. Their ability to problem solve improved because of what they had to do. They had to close things out at the end of the night. They were much more, their project management skills improved because they were doing inventory, right? Like, so just ensuring that you understand, like it's a moment in time, but also keeping the appreciation that if somebody really is overly concerned about why you did that, it may not be the company you want to work for anyways, to be honest with you. So that's just
totally.
Okay.
I totally agree with that. And it's the same thing about people who judge folks for having resume gaps. Like in this day and age, who hasn't been impacted by a layoff or doesn't know someone incredible who's been impacted by a layoff? Or maybe you got to take time off for a different reason, to take care of a family member or a loved one or your family. Or maybe you just needed a break because you'd been in the rat race for so long and had to take a couple months off. Like whatever it might be, I think companies that judge people for having some sort of gap, or to your point, maybe taking some sort of filler role to get to the next one, that might not be a good fit. And I think the same thing if you're talking to a company that is judging you based off of your age. Like I personally wouldn't want to work at a company like that. I think it's BS that this happens and it's really unfortunate. But at the end of the day, like I feel like that's not a company where my values would be aligned and where I'd want to be long-term anyways.
I agree. Thousands.
And we have a ton of other good questions, but we do have other topics. So I'm going to move on to the next topic. And then at the end, we can come back. And if this is where most of the questions are, we'll come back to them.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Second topic is interview prep. So a lot of people struggle with interviews, and, most people aren't naturally great at interviewing. But if you've made it that far in the process, it's important to do everything you can to put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
So what sort of suggestions do you have here for people that might be struggling with interviews?
So your intellect won't get you anywhere with interview prep. I'm going to tell you that straight up. And what I mean by that is you can read all the materials. You can get all the information. You can write things down. You can, you can listen to YouTube videos, like all the stuff, right? That's the intellect stuff, right? You're capturing information, researching, like absorbing. Do a mock interview with another live person. AI is great, y'all, but let me tell you, there's nothing like sitting in front of, like, if Molly and I were doing a mock interview right now, and I would flub up, right? Or I would be like, oh, blah, 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 wait, I want to start over. Hang on, right? I need to do that stuff in a practice session. It's like, so I have a theater background and I performed for a number of years. It's a dress rehearsal. That's where you like get the dress rehearsal out of the way and practice questions. And so a good recruiter is going to give you some level of preparation questions prior to your interview, and practice those. The biggest one I will tell you that people get flubbed up on is, so tell me a little bit about yourself. I don't know why. I don't know why that's the biggest one, but people like either will go into their entire life history, right? Which, that's nerves getting the best of you, or they're so short and condensed that the interviewer's like, okay, like I got nothing out of that, right? So, right. So again, I would practice like, tell me a little bit about yourself question, and really get into your rhythm. And then again, get those prep questions from the recruiter, at least like one or two. The other thing too is, and I think we've all heard about this methodology, I hope you have, which is the STAR method for your answers. And so what I mean by that, STAR, like when you're interviewing, think about different scenarios that you've experienced in your job. When you speak to general about a response to an interview question, like those behavioral based questions, give me an example of a time when ... And if you say, oh, well, I have experience, creating large scale projects, and I've been able to, and right, that's very general. Like I'm telling you how I do the things, not where I did them, why I had to do them, and what was the tangible result, right? Mm-hmm. So the STAR, look up the STAR method. I'm not going to go into it here because it's too, like, you guys can all Google it. But that's prepare answers against that. And then practice, but practice with a live person. If you have a spouse or a significant other or a brother or a sister or a cousin or a neighbor or a friend or whatever, right? Anybody who would be willing just to sit and listen to you, practice your responses. They don't have to be an expert at interviewing. You just need another person. There's something magical that happens with the live interaction than you do with your intellect, researching and preparing and all that stuff.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And if you're like me, you'll be surprised the first time you try to articulate a response is very different than your second or third iteration, and you can tweak and refine it. And that way you sound awkward to Joy or me versus the interviewer or whoever you're practicing with.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really think the art of saying your answers out loud ahead of time, and, pick 3 to 5 questions, as Joy was saying, for situational responses. I try to have maybe 3 examples of projects or achievements that I can pull from that I'm ready to discuss. And you can usually use those for a myriad of different, the situational questions that you might get asked. But yeah, practice. Real human is preferred. If you don't have somebody, you could use an AI tool. Like we've got one on Earn Better where you record yourself answering the question, and then afterwards we'll give you feedback. And for instance, if you don't use the STAR method, we'll give you some tips on how to maybe incorporate that or how to potentially improve. I do agree with Joy that finding a live person is better because it kind of creates the interview jitters, which is good. But if you don't have somebody, that's another option. Or you can just, do a little bit of research, figure out what the 3 questions are, and you can practice in the mirror or, on your own. But I do think that's really, really important.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how many people just want to help, right? Like we're all wired as humans to want to help somebody else. Honestly, you just got to ask.
Totally.
Would you help me?
Yeah. Which actually, kind of dovetails nicely into our next topic, because I think
cool.
everybody is always more willing to help or interested in helping than we think. And so I'll go to the next topic, and then we'll go back to questions after that. So the importance of keeping your pipeline full, and, more generally, why consistent networking can be so important, especially in today's market. Kind of a meaty one. Where would you want to start?
Well, so let's talk about networking really quickly. So, and I've seen lots of commentary on networking on LinkedIn and how to do it and all that good stuff. Networking is not a one and done. Networking is an always on. Like, this is you're stoking the fire. Think about it as like a campfire outside that you need to constantly make sure it stays lit. Whether it's super low or like a big bonfire, it depends on how much you put into it, but you're always doing something. So things like, Molly and I met on LinkedIn, right? And didn't know each other, and we didn't ask each other for anything out of the gate. It was, I want to get to know you and get to know what you do, so I can have an appreciation for how we might intersect in a business way, right? And through that, we've just kept in touch, right? And now I'm doing this kind of stuff with you. And I even told Molly earlier, I was like, if you guys need anything, you let me know. Happy to make connections and all that good stuff, because I know Molly now, right? So I think so networking isn't always on. If you turn it off, you're going to have to restart. Like, you're going to have to go get the firewood, and you have to do all the things, right? So just keep stoking the fire. And the best way to start networking, start with your inner circle first. You don't have to go to third connections. So let's talk about LinkedIn. You don't have to go to third connections and send a cold message. Start with your first line connections and start asking questions of them. Hey, who else should I connect with? This is what I'm looking to do. Who else should I connect with? Like, if I had somebody in my network, my first line connection, contact me and say, hey, Joy, I'm starting my job search. This is what I'm looking for. And it's super specific ask of like, I really only want to be in this area. And I don't have a big network there. I know you know a lot of people. Could you help me? Hell yeah. Let's do it. Right? Let me see who I can connect you to. But that's a first line connect. So start with your first line first, and then ask, but be intentional about why you're reaching out to them and ask them for help. Right. So that's how I would do the networking component. When we talk about the pipeline, so, and I'll try to wrap this up very, very quickly, but we talk about pipeline. To me, what that means is keep opportunities. Don't ever say no to an opportunity because you're currently working. And when I say by opportunity, don't ever say no to listening to an opportunity. I made the huge mistake. I was at Microsoft, and this was before everybody and their grandmother was like, getting crazy offers and all this other stuff. I had like 4 companies reach out to me. Hey, would you be interested in this opportunity? Would you be interested? And I was like, oh, absolutely not. I'm so happy here. Okay. I had a colleague of mine who I immensely respect, and we're still very good, we're very good friends today. And she's no longer at Microsoft. I'm no longer at Microsoft, right? She said to me at one point, because I told her, I was like, oh my God, I got to hit up all the time for these opportunities. And she's like, great. She's like, are you talking to them? And I'm like, oh my God, no. Right. And she goes, why not? Like, this is not about, Microsoft is not my family. Microsoft is my job, right? If another job came along that was like unbelievable, maybe paid more, maybe had better benefits, right? It doesn't mean that I'm going to take the job, but have conversations, right? Like, that's at the end of the day, have conversations. So pipeline to me means always having conversations. So God forbid, should we get in another situation like we did this last 18 months of craziness, right? You're not having to potentially start over in regards to opportunities. A lot of people that got these job opportunities right out of the gate after they got laid off were ones that did what I just told you about networking and pipelining. They constantly were stoking the fire. So when they got laid off, they reached out, and within 2 weeks they had job offers, not just a job offer, job offers. So
Yeah.
to me, that's what I'm doing. Right. So I hope that helps.
And it just never hurts to have the conversation. Even if you don't, if you're not looking and you're happy, you could still chat with the recruiter, learn a little bit, also do market research. Are you being paid fairly? And, maybe you could help that recruiter if you're not looking, but you have a friend, then you refer your friend. And then you never know. In 12 to 18 months, you might be looking and you might reach back out to that recruiter and they'll remember, oh, this person chatted with me, gave me some info. I totally agree with that. And very good points earlier on the networking front as well. And I do think like understanding it's a two-way street. Sometimes you might be giving, sometimes you might be taking, but just coming to the table, understanding that, knowing like what to ask for, telling the person what would be helpful. That's always good. I sometimes get messages on LinkedIn that's just like, I need a job from somebody I don't know. And it's like, help me help you, give a little bit more.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah. So, I mean, honestly, this is how Joy and I met like a year ago. And it was just an informal intro. And then we've done several things since then.
Together.
Yeah, exactly. To support each other and collaborate. And that's kind of like the flywheel. And I know if I needed something, I could go to Joy and vice versa.
Yeah.
I know we're 2 minutes over. Joy, do you have to hop? Should we try to get to like one or two questions? Okay.
I'm good. I'm going to stay on until we can get questions answered.
Okay, let's see. What's the best way to make a LinkedIn post letting your network know you're looking and would appreciate any leads? I can go first. And then feel free to pile on.
Yeah.
So, I would keep it succinct, but give enough details about what you're looking for. Sometimes I see posts and it's people that I've worked with previously that are awesome and I want to help, but it might not say like what types of jobs they're looking for. So especially if you have a varied background where maybe you've done 3 or 4 different types of job functions, make sure you let your network know what types of opportunities you're looking for. And if there's like a specific industry, I would include that as well. Again, the more information you give your network, the more they might be able to help. And even, they might reach out right then and there to help, or it could be a couple weeks later and they're like, oh, I remember Amanda posted, she's looking for this type of opportunity. I just saw something posted. I would just, do a quick intro in case there's people who read your post that are not a first connection, and then include info about briefly what you've done and what you're looking for.
Yep.
I don't know, Joy, what you would add to that.
I think that's perfect. The shorter, the better.
Yeah. In the ADHD generation, don't write like 10 paragraphs because that's not going to get read.
No. And I might even take it a step further, and I would even say short and sweet. I'm looking for, and bold the title. I'm looking for, like if I was looking, right, I'm looking for a talent acquisition leadership role, bold that. Working in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, or remote, bold that. I'm available immediately. Boom, done.
Yeah.
Send it, right? The other thing too is after you post it, go back into your comments and tag some folks that you would want to see that post, and they'll pick it up, and you can even say, hey, could you please share? Right? And then, because when you tag somebody, it pops up on their activity, right? And you're like, oh, like David tags me in his weekly or biweekly job posts, right? That he curates, which are awesome, by the way. So if you're not following David, I highly recommend following David Marr. And I'll grab that and I'll be like, oh, David tagged me, I need to reshare that, right? So that's another easy way to do it.
Yeah. Totally. And the more engagement you get on the post and, people liking or sharing it, the more eyes it'll reach.
Yep.
So a couple people, this is back, we're back on the ageism topic. Some folks were asking about, and that, I kind of forgot about this when we were talking about removing graduation date from college, where some ATSs require that. Honestly, if it's required, there's not going to be a way around it, and I wouldn't lie. I would include the right information.
Yeah.
And again, if they disqualify you based on that, shame on them. And I don't think that's probably a company that you want to work for, but I don't think there's necessarily a way to sidestep that. And especially if it's required, you don't want to have an incomplete application. And in some cases, you might not even be able to submit it.
Yep. Agreed.
We had one person ask, why might a company want somebody with 5 years rather than 20 years other than pay rate?
So I think there's some companies out there that are building up their teams with talent, like early in career talent, to rebuild their teams, right? So it's just maybe they have enough individuals with that, with senior robust experience, and they really need to hire individuals with less experience. They need a balanced plate of individuals from an experience standpoint. So it could be that. Obviously, compensation, budget is a big part of it as well.
They might.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna just to kind of piggyback on that. They might also be worried that you're taking this as this kind of a interim job, and that when you get something else, when the market turns, you'll leave, whether that's in 6 or 12 months. So that's another reason I've heard they might want to stick with somebody who's closer to that pay rate.
Yeah.
And then there's also just some flat out discrimination, if we're being honest, which is very unfortunate.
Agreed.
Okay. Another person, is the judgment happening before the interview? Is the ATS rejecting us seasoned professionals before we get to the recruiter? I think it could be happening in both places. Like it's not the ATS to start, unless you've answered a knockout question in a specific way.
Right.
If they require, if you require sponsorship and they're not able to offer that, or if you're under 18, there are certain questions where if you answer a certain way, you're automatically going to get disqualified.
Right.
Other than that, it's going to be a recruiter reviewing your resume. So, I mean, technically, yes, the recruiter could pass judgment on the resume itself, or it could be happening during the interview.
Screen. Yeah. Well, and let's keep it real. I mean, we are passing judgment on resumes, right? Because we're given a set of criteria during an intake session with a hiring manager. And the hiring manager and the recruiter sat down and said, okay, this is let's put together a hiring strategy. What are we looking for, et cetera. And okay, what do you have in your team? What are we missing on the team, et cetera, right? So you have all this criteria. And then by the time you post the job and then you're reviewing resumes, that is a judgment call, right? Like we're doing our best to, ensure that we're being fair and equitable with every single candidate. But at the end of the day, it's, again, we read top down, left to right, guys. So if I get to 10 resumes and those 10 resumes top down, left to right have exactly what I'm looking for, I'm gonna screen those 10. And if I find 5 out of those 10 that I want to move to my hiring manager, I'm going, right? And then I might be off to the next rec. So it could also be as simple as the sheer number of applications that are coming in. You may not even be getting reviewed and auto disposition because they didn't even get to review your resume. So, I mean, that's just another harsh reality. So, I mean, there are some folks too that believe in early bird gets the worm. So I will say that also can help. But
yeah. Nope, totally agree on that. Okay, I think we only have one more, unless I missed any, in which case I am sorry. So where was this? Sorry, I just had it. Lori asked, I'm curious about answering the question if you've had a disability now or in the past, and if that impacts your chances of being considered for the position. I'm pretty sure this would be in the EEOC questions that are sometimes attached to job applications.
Yep.
I mean, the answer there should be no.
Right.
That shouldn't be considered as part of the qualifications or requirements. That's from my understanding, separate for companies to collect for the backgrounds of the types of people that are applying. I don't know what you would add.
Yeah, no. And I'm very open about this. I have a hidden disability, and I I've sometimes answered yes, and sometimes answered I prefer not to answer. I can't tell you whether or not that hurt or helped my chances on my application status because I didn't track it that closely enough. But I will tell you, it's a personal choice. It's a total personal choice whether you choose to, share that on an application or not, just like it is with the EEO, by the way, as well, right? You can prefer not to disclose any of that information. That's a complete personal choice. So, and I don't think, and frankly, the only time, back in the day when diversity was like the thing, right? And by the way, I've been in diversity for a long time. Like I've been in diversity recruiting and sourcing and all that stuff. So I have a long history with this before it became a thing over the last like 3 years. When it was a big thing back in the day, folks were really like, we need to capture that information. We need to capture that information. And now it's completely voluntary, right? So we might have it, we might not have it. And that should not be the deciding factor on whether or not we hire somebody. So
Totally.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, we did get one more, and then I'll shut it because I know we're already 12 minutes over, but we still have a lot of people in the session. So I say we go for it.
Go for it, girl.
So how do you answer a question when doing an interview asking you about a skill that you are clueless of? Yeah.
You go.
This is tough. I'm kind of like what Joy said earlier, like radical transparency and radical honesty. I would admit that I do not have experience with that, but I would try to pivot. It depends on the skill and talk about, how I've learned skills really quickly. And, say it was a technology system, I would try to think of a different type of technology system that I had to learn on the fly in a previous job. So I wouldn't just say like, no, I don't have that skill and stop answering the question. So I'd be honest about where my potential gaps are, but I would then talk about how I've learned really quickly in previous jobs and try to provide an example. It kind of depends on what the exact skill is. Joy, I don't know what you would add there.
The only thing I would say is again, radical honesty, right? Just be honest, because if you don't have it, you don't have it. And the thing though that I love, I've just been ingrained with this over the last maybe 10 years of my career, which is stay curious a little bit longer and ask a question about, okay, so I don't have that, but how does that actually affect the day-to-day job? Like, what is it about this particular skill that's needed? And how does it play a role in this position, right? Like ask the question, because it could be as simple as, oh, we were just hoping somebody might have it.
Mm-hmm.
Or the person who's leaving the role is really an expert. And while it's not required, it would be unbelievably fantastic. And then go, oh, okay, well, would that person be willing, like, are they going to leave before this person gets hired? Because if they're still going to be here, could I train with that person? Right. Because I'm very adept at learning skills new quickly. For example, I didn't know X previously, but I took, I was able to learn from blah, blah, blah. Right. So it's kind of a mishmash of what Molly was saying and what I'm saying as well. Stay curious just a little bit longer and ask a question as to how that actually fits into the role. You might find out something completely different than you thought, that, oh my God, I don't have that. And they're not going to consider me for the position.
That's a good point. Digging more.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Joy, I think we got to most of the questions. If there is something, we missed, I apologize. We try to stay on top of everything, but feel free to message either of us and we'll try to get back to you. But thank you so much to everybody who joined today. Any feedback for us, feel free to let us know. If we did another one of these, what you'd want to hear more of, less of, etc. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a good rest of their day. And thank you again, Joy, and for everybody who participated. All right. Bye-bye.